We don't have that right now.
Yeah.
We have men who are up there who are going along to get along, and that's the crux of the matter here is that you don't have the right people involved to say, that's enough. You're not going to get away with this anymore.
Well, and see, here's what's happened too, because what we've done is we've allowed this, our fathers' it started the ignorance by letting it go, just letting it go. Now, the problem with that is that I think the number one fear is the collusion and corruption
Absolutely.
that will come to bear down on people who are willing to stand up and say something. Here's the thing, though. Here's the thing that I think people misunderstand. If you're elected, we've got your back.
I agree with that.
See, and
that's a great point, because that's what I always say.
Yeah, this is the deal, that people who are in office, who are put in office now, as opposed to 10 years ago or 20 years ago, we have their backs.
Very
because
good.
it is at our door.
Absolutely.
And that makes a big difference, because it will take that kind of courage. So let's go back to some more things.
I'm going to finish the
Sure.
thought on the
Yes.
War Powers Act.
I'm sorry.
If I go to Congress, if the Lord gives me the opportunity to be elected, I am going to once and for all, let's make hay of that, and let's start with that, because that's been a debate that's been ongoing. Nobody wants to touch it. We have to start with that, and then once we say, okay, you don't have the constitutional right to write an executive order and just go because you're the executive power to go and run a
Right.
war
Right.
or get into another war theater. If we can settle that issue, that will become the first domino that falls, and that's how we get these other executive orders, the mandate to stop the executive orders. I mean, the czars and all that, the
Yes.
appointments. The recess appointments when there is no recess appointments,
Yes.
those are impeachable acts. But
They are.
and so no one follows up, Sheryl.
Yeah.
And those who are elected officials right now, Republican and Democrat,
Yes.
they go on the premise the American people forget. They have a short memory,
Or they
and
don't
they'll
know.
forget about it in 15 days.
They don't know. Okay.
That's the point.
So
we have to make something happen.
Yes, the latest appointment that you're talking about, that infuriated me. I felt so violated because I, as a citizen, have no control over that.
That's right.
But I know better. And the reason, this is the thing, this is what the Constitution says about that. That the president can make appointments if the appointment becomes vacant during a recess. Not make the appointment, not fill the appointment
That's
during a recess. Obama filled an appointment that was already vacant before the recess, but he waited for the recess to fill it. That's not constitutional.
But Sheryl,
Can't do that.
actually, there was no recess, because the recess has to happen. The representative body has to give the Senate body a go-ahead for recess. That never happened. They were actually in session. What you didn't have was the whole body of senators or the whole body of the representatives.
Okay, so did they have a quorum?
They were never. No, there was no quorum.
Okay,
but they were
that's
never in
why.
recess.
Right.
So
Wow, that's
each
even
body
worse.
has to
That's
give
terrible.
permission
Correct.
to go
yes.
on recess. Well, that didn't occur, and
Right, 'cause the
Obama
recesses
thought they
go
were playing
together.
political games, and so he just decided to make the appointment whether they were recess or not.
Yeah. Okay. Now.
So that's what happened.
Thank you for clarifying that. Because I didn't know all those details. Perfect. All right, we're going to. I'm going to refer you back to a previous broadcast. I think it was. Gosh, because my schedule sort of messed up. I think it was a couple weeks ago that I did the broadcast on I'm trying to think. I think I did it with Aristotle when I was talking about virtues, but maybe not.
It was 2 weeks ago.
Okay. All right. So in that broadcast, I believe we touched on this whole system of what's happened. I'm pretty sure that's the one. So if you want to pull that up too, you'll get a little bit more education for your background, so that you can be more savvy on the kind of person you want for Congress and what you want to do for your future. Because it will take a concerted effort. These people that are running for Congress and for president, everybody else. The people are the ones that do the largest check and balance.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we can't just put somebody in office and turn around and walk home and
Absolutely.
say, "Okay, it's time to go to the beach." Okay, we're going to have to stay with the program.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's
Absolutely.
Can we move on?
Absolutely. Let's do
Okay,
it.
great. All right, so we talked a little bit about executive orders. Now, I'm gonna, maybe we'll have time to come back to it. Baby, how much time do we have? Do we need to take a break?
We have about 20 minutes to the hour. So if you're going
Okay.
to take an hour break.
Yeah, let's go. Okay, we've got 20 minutes. Good. All right, so 20 minutes and we've gone through one question.
We've said a lot of good things, though.
We
There
have.
has been a lot come out of that one question.
Yes.
Yes, yeah. And yeah, there's been some wonderful meat in there. Okay, let's talk a little bit about TSA.
Absolutely.
One of my favorite organizations to hate, in favorite bureaucracies to hate. I actually took a trip last year to go see family, and I refused to get on a plane. No, I love flying. I could fly from here to Timbuktu and back and forward again, and be just having the lark. And if I could, I would have my own license, and I'm telling you, it's probably going to come sooner than later. But I did not fly. I drove, and it took me. I did a trip from here to the top of Utah through New Mexico, Arizona, New Mexico, and stopped and saw a bunch of family and friends, and then made my way back. Well, that trip ended up being twice the money that it would have been. I had a minivan. Minivans are not cheap. But I will tell you, I've got an album of beautiful pictures that I took
Absolutely.
like this the whole way.
I've done that. I've done that trip.
And you know who I thank? I thank TSA.
Yeah.
I got a thank you letter. I haven't mailed it yet, but I have a thank you letter for them. Okay, here's my point. You know, I am to the point now where I'm thinking, okay, I have to make some trips and I'm going to have to fly.
Right.
And at this point, my family thinks I'm a little nutty. But I said, you know what? You know your mother. You know your mother. You know I'm not going to do so. I'm not going to put up with this. But this is the thing. This is the thing that's mind-boggling to me, is that there's not very many of us that are not willing to put up with it. I cannot understand why there are 20% of people who go onto a plane have been accosted and their private parts have been touched 4 times by procedure. I do not get that. This is absurd to me that our country has... Okay, so, speak.
I'm going to premise everything. I'm going to premise everything I say with this.
Okay.
Benjamin Franklin said, "Those who trade freedom for safety will lose both and deserve neither."
Correct.
Okay.
One of the best.
Bottom line.
One of the best. Yes.
So
And it's absolutely 100% true.
yes, it is. And I shudder every time somebody says, "Well, Robert, we have to do something. We got to be safe." Every time you get in your car and when you turn your engine on and you back out of your driveway, you're taking your life into your own hands.
You don't even have to leave your house.
If you get on a bus, metro bus, you take your life into your own hands. You get on an airplane. So what are we going to do? Are we going to be serious about keeping terrorists off the airplanes, or are we going to play the game of taking your liberties away?
Right.
I believe, Sheryl, like you, that this is about liberties. This is not about protection. I really believe that what's happening in our airports is about another piece of your liberties going away. Because again, we go back to the global government.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay, so that said, my wife and I, and you know, my wife is the founder of the Clear Lake Tea Party. I'm the co-founder, and we have a small group of people that started this Tea Party movement in February of 2009. Well, since then, we've grown to 2,000 plus members. We are movers and shakers in the state house. And so we were there. We happened to be there the day that the TSA anti-groping bill was being introduced to the House.
Oh. Now,
And this was Representative David Simpson, who was very adamant about getting this passed, the anti-groping bill. Go ahead.
You know, I'm just going to preface this. This is an extraordinary piece of legislation. This is an extraordinary story. You must pay attention.
Yes, and we were there, and the House was not. Now let me go back. The TSA anti-groping bill had 30 of the 31 state senators. There were 4 to pass it.
Right.
David Dewhurst told Dan Patrick, hang on a second, don't introduce this yet. It hadn't got to the House yet. Don't introduce this yet. There's something coming down from the federal government. We've got to just wait for a second. I've got to, clean this thing up a little bit.
Right.
In the meantime, David Dewhurst goes and starts visiting every Texas senator
Yeah.
in the Texas House. It went from 30 to 1 to 20 to 11, and then eventually, because you have to have 21 or 31 votes,
Right.
it went less than 19, and they dropped it. Dan Patrick had 30
Yeah.
signees
Yeah.
in this. Well, what happened? What happened? The TSA and the federal government came and they had a little mandate, and so if you do this, Texas travelers will not be allowed to leave Texas, and we're going to shut down all the airports. I say, come and get it. Come and take it.
I
Okay?
did too.
This is
Remember
Texas.
that, Steve? Yeah.
Come and
yeah,
take it.
That's right.
Who gives the federal government the right to come and curtail commerce? Because that's what they're doing.
Right.
Okay? Commerce,
Or free travel.
free travel, but it's commerce.
That's
Because
right.
people are buying tickets, people are going from one business to the other, they're taking care of business.
Well, they could argue it's interstate because it's from state to state.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
However,
So they shut it down, and they didn't even get a vote. The House, who was ready to vote on this thing, they came in, and I remember looking at the roll call. They were supposed to vote on it, and they didn't say they had a quorum. A lot of the representatives left, so we never got a chance to vote for the anti-groping bill. David Simpson was hot, because there were a couple of state house representative women who were groped at the airports that same week, and it's all about, Sheryl, it's all about liberties. Now I say all this to say that if you allow the federal government to come and take your liberties away, what's the next step
right.
at the airport? Everybody says, well, you don't have to fly. It's not about you don't have to fly.
They don't-
It's about the liberties
that's right.
that you're losing.
Now, and this is okay. You may not be familiar with this unless you've listened to the show before. This is the Blue Sky tool. Okay, we've gone over this before about this exact same legislation. So you know, there's a handful of American tools that we use and they're basically analytical skills. The Blue Skies tool is where, in this instance, basically what it is if I say to you, frogs don't leap, and you say, well, yes they do. Frogs do leap. I say, no, they don't. They don't leap because the sky is blue. Well, the sky is blue, right?
Right.
Okay, it sounds right.
You got backing.
Because I've told you a truth, and everybody says, oh, that's true, that means the other is true. And that's what I call the sky's blue tool. It's a technique that is used to validate something that either has nothing to do with it,
Right.
or is completely false.
Right.
Okay, and that's the sky's blue tool. This is a perfect example of the sky's blue tool. It has nothing to do with whether you have a right to fly or not.
Absolutely.
I have a right to move about, period. I have a right to move about. How I choose to do it may or may not be a personal right.
Right.
However, that does not mean the federal government or anybody has a right to physically or sexually assault me
Absolutely.
because of it. Two different things. They never have that right,
Right.
except if we let them.
Absolutely. And you said it, there are not enough people who are willing to say enough's enough. And that's really a problem. We have the TSA agents who don't necessarily check the right people. The right people.
Right.
Let's talk about the 96-year-old lady who grandmother who had leukemia. And she was going from Florida to Minnesota
Right.
to visit her.
And she didn't want to go through the WBI machine.
Well, they were taking her depends off. To go to that extreme to say we're being safe,
It's absurd.
It's absurd.
It's absolutely absurd.
Again, Sheryl, it's not about safety. If they do that to this grandmother, you have to understand. You have to look at the little things.
Yeah.
I came from Cuba. I'm telling you, I know what this looks like. It's not about safety. It's about taking your rights away,
Right.
and they do it there. Trust me, this is going to go from there to something else.
That's right.
It's
I agree with you.
just
I
like the
agree.
smokers, well, we shouldn't have any smokers. I'm not a smoker, but you know what? If they want to smoke outside, give them the right. If there's a restaurant owner that wants to have smokers in his restaurant, why not? You as a non-smoker, if you don't like it, you don't go there.
Right.
So, but the problem with this is because smokers are, everybody's, they're smokers. They don't, they don't deserve, because they're infringing on my rights. Well, the next thing is eating fatty foods or ice cream or the Happy Meals at McDonald's,
Right.
It never ends. And this is what's happening in America. It's the little things. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
That's right.
That's what's happening in the United States right now.
That's right.
Thus, why I'm running for Congress. Because I believe that somebody's got to stop, and somebody's got to put the brakes on this and turn this big ship around.
So what would you do?
What I would do is, you have to go in there and say, because again, the TSA is a federal agency,
Right.
you have to write a bill that says, if you're going to do real safety, you're going to profile and you're going to do it like the Israelis do it. That's what you would do in the TSA.
Or every other country, by the way.
Or every other country. You will
they
profile. They ask questions.
Right.
If the questions don't match with what their response is, then they do a secondary check.
Right.
But they don't come in. They don't come in and sequester and put a 96-year-old lady in the back room and you can't touch, or have a 6-year-old little kid and he's being
Strip search.
sexually molested,
Right.
because he might be a terrorist.
How absurd is that?
It's absurd.
Yeah. How absurd is that?
So what you do is, if you're going to do safety, you don't do it at the peril of your liberty.
Right.
And so it's truly liberty.
Okay. Yeah. You know what? And to add to that, I actually wrote an article about
House
this whole
resolution
thing.
bill is what I would do.
What's that?
House resolution bill is what I would do. I would
Okay.
propose that.
All right. Now, well, before I say what I was going to say this little thing. I wrote a little article about this thing, and I said, if it was about safety, then the TSA would be handing us out parachutes.
Absolutely.
Because the reality is we have a greater risk of having a crash than we do being
Absolutely.
involved in some sort of.
No doubt about it.
If that was the issue, pass out parachutes.
Again, it's not about that.
It is not about that. Now, and one thing I should tell everybody, you know what? This country has always been a target. It's always been a target. There's always been an issue here with safety. It's the reason why there are 8 of the 18 clauses in Section 8 of Article 1 that deal with what? Protection of the states.
Absolutely.
It's already there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so, all right, so now the other thing is, when you were talking about what you would do with TSA, what would you do if another state was told, we'll shut you down? Can you see anything as a congressman that you could do legislatively?
Well,
Or maybe even not just legislatively, but maybe through colleagues?
this is what I would do. That's a great question. You have the interstate clause,
Yes,
interstate commerce.
yes.
I can't do anything because this would be a state issue. What I would do is I would come back to my state and I would talk to Governor Perry. Say, listen, we've got a problem here. Let's say Indiana. Indiana is being told they're going to shut them down. I want you to get Attorney General Greg Abbott and draw up an interstate commerce clause. Okay? Draw it up between the states. It only has to be 2 states. It can be 25 like the Obamacare thing right now is going on. In this case, we have 25 states or 27. I don't remember the number. I think it's 25. But you can do it, and you can write an interstate clause and say, I, in Congress, will sponsor the bill that will get this rolling. Because what all has to happen is you have to get 2 states to get into a commerce clause and then take it to the Congress, both houses, and all you have to do is get 2/3 of both houses to pass it. It's done. It's a done deal.
Yeah.
That's how I would do it. Because I can't, my initiation would be going to the state government and say, I will help you on this. In this case, Texas. We have to help Indiana. Let's get together and let's do it. That's all I can do. Once that happens between the states, then I can take over and I can start doing
And
my
that's
part.
brilliant. That's actually very brilliant. And it's one of the saving things that's happened with what's before SCOTUS right now, because there
Yes.
was a state that actually legislated, and so as soon as the Obamacare was passed, they could claim a loss. And see, and that's actually how you can do that.
I'm actually
And that's very
distressed.
constitutional.
I am actually distressed that this has gone to the Supreme Court, this Obamacare. Because this doesn't even have to go to the Supreme Court. It can go to both houses of Congress. They can pass this. Because you already have an interstate clause. It's in the Constitution.
Correct.
It can happen. And they can override any
But
presidential veto.
the problem is they've already passed it.
Well,
So,
yeah.
I think the problem is, I think
I know they're heading with they're doing the unconstitutionality of it, and that's the route they have taken.
the reality is that right now there's not enough
I know.
votes in the Senate
I know.
to overturn
That's
it
true.
legislatively.
Absolutely true.
Which is another thing we have to work on.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to take, well, it might be a couple, 2 or 3 minutes. But we're going to take a break, and we will be back after you go get yourself a nice drink, and we will do the same, and we'll see you on the backside.